I'm Jeremy Kenton, health correspondent for the Olive Press. Coronavirus is now very, very serious. Here in Spain, as from Monday at 8 a.m, we are officially on what is known as lockdown. What this means is that the police have power, but the military have power over the police, and certain rules have to be stuck to. Now, what are those rules? Why are they so important? Well, the most important thing to remember is that for 15 days is the potential quarantine period for anybody. So even though you may not be showing any symptoms, or you may not have been in contact with anybody who has had the virus, this is there for your safety and to try and contain the virus from spreading even further throughout Spain. So what is happening as from 8 a.m. on Monday by royal decree is the following factors. Now, under law, as from Monday, will mean that you have to stay at home for 15 days. Now, that period of time may be extended. Now, there are exceptions to the royal decree, and those are, firstly, travelling for food or medicine. Extremely important that if you need to go to a pharmacy, you are allowed to do so, and you are allowed to go to shops. But please do not panic buy. The shops, and the shops that we have spoken to, have adequate supplies coming in on a daily basis, so there is no need to panic buy. Secondly, and very important, you are allowed to attend for medical attention and for pre-existing medical appointments which have not been cancelled. Thirdly, if you need to go to work. Now, obviously, some workplaces have been closed. Large offices with large numbers of people, all bars and all restaurants. So anywhere, such as theatres, cinemas, are closed. Fourthly, obviously, returning home. Fifthly, attending to vulnerable friends or relatives. And it's important that we look after those who are near us, the elderly or the infirm, or those who cannot simply get out. Sixthly, attending financial institutions. If you need to go to the bank, if they are still open, obviously you are allowed to travel for that reason. The seventh one is when you are requested to move by either the military or the police. And remember, as we stress, the government are now in overall charge, and with the military over the power of the national police and the local police. And finally, any other justifiable legal reason that the government feel that you're allowed to do so. So one of the problems is that people are coming up with all kinds of fake, wonderful ideas about how they can test themselves for the coronavirus. Firstly, remember that the earliest signs and symptoms that you may have are a sore throat, a feeling of malaise or tiredness, and a cough, which then rapidly turns into a fever. But it can take up to 4 or 5 days after you've been infected before those signs show. And it's very difficult to differentiate between normal flu and the coronavirus. There is only one specific way in which you can be isolated as to whether or not it is the coronavirus, and that is through a blood test. Some people are coming up with all kinds of ideas about if you take a sharp intake of breath and hold it and it produces discomfort, that's classic of the coronavirus. This is not true. It is totally false information. And weird and wonderful cures are being put about in terms of if you drink sufficient water, it will cause the virus to go into your stomach and be absorbed and killed by the body. Another total myth. Please ignore these ridiculous myths. You have to make sure that if you are going to be wearing a face mask, that you do not keep it on if it becomes damp or moist. And generally speaking, it's actually putting you at more risk. So only if you're in a very public environment, wear a face mask, and only for a short period of time, if you can get hold of them, and they are now in incredibly short supply. Rubber gloves, latex gloves are a sensible precaution, but once again, these should be changed regularly. You cannot wear one pair of gloves for 1 or 2 or 3 days if you're out and about. They should be disposed of after an hour or so's use. And remember also to disinfect all surfaces, door handles, toilet seats, all areas where potentially any hard surface can have the virus existing on it for anything up to 9 to 11 hours. So making sure that all surfaces are cleaned on a regular basis. Another thing is alcohol gels, a minimum of 65%, otherwise they will be not effective at all. Making sure that with alcohol gels that they do contain alcohol. Some of the ones which are designed for sensitive skin actually have no alcohol content whatsoever and are sanitizers in terms of antibacterial, but here we're dealing with a virus, not a bacteria. One of the main things that people are unsure about is in terms of hand washing, and there is a very good clinical reason for soap and water being very effective. The outer part of a virus is a lipid and it's destroyed by soap. Soap and water are extremely effective at destroying the virus. When you've been in contact with others, when you've been in contact with a hard surface, but literally not just a quick hand wash, but doing it for as long as possible. And the old medical guideline used to be to wash your hands, making sure that you're thoroughly getting in between the backs of the hands, the fingers, the wrists, so that you're moving your whole hand for 2 verses of Happy Birthday. Very, very important. So the essential thing to remember is that these rules are there for your safety. Now, there's a lot of criticism of the fact that people are now migrating to the coastal regions from the larger cities and potentially carrying the virus with them. It's vitally important that people realize that once they arrive in other towns where they've literally fled from the larger cities, that they must self-isolate, and that these rules of the 15 days, which could be extended, are there for your safety. In essence, this isn't a drill. This is extremely important that people stay at home, don't socialize, and do everything they can to protect not just themselves, but the health and welfare of everybody else. So here at the Olive Press, we're updating you on a regular basis. Join and look at our Facebook page, look at the YouTube channel, the Olive Press TV, and the Olive Press newspaper itself. We'll be updating you on a constant basis throughout this serious emergency.